Hello everybody and welcome to my channel Almost Home Creates. Today I am going to be making a chessboard and some chess pieces that I would like to show you. I'm going to first mix up black with some onyx glitter, some black resin dye, and some alcohol ink to use for every other square on the chessboard, and I will let this sit overnight and harden before I add the next layer. But I decided black with the glitter for the first set of the squares. And to actually put this in the squares, I am going to be using a Walgreens syringe that I had at the house. It seemed like the best thing to use to actually have some kind of control over where the resin's going. And it actually worked quite nicely, so I'll probably be doing this again. But first, I'm just going to put black in my syringe, fill it up about halfway full, and I will just slowly put it into each of the squares that I'm going to be using the black on. And I kind of don't fill them all the way filled because resin likes to settle, so it should naturally move into the square a little bit on its own, and I don't want to overfill because that's much harder to clean up than to underfill and add. So I will basically go through and slightly underfill each one of these to see how it settles, and I kind of am going through, and the ones I noticed definitely don't have enough resin in them the first time. I'm adding a little more as I go, and I'm just going to continue this over the whole chessboard until I have completely filled in each of the black squares. If you notice as I go, the beginning squares that I filled are starting to fill out nicely, and I'm just going to go back through and fill in a little bits more in each one that I notice has not spread nicely, and I'll use the edge of my syringe to kind of pull the resin to the corners just to make sure there's good coverage over the entire chessboard in each of these black squares so that it can settle nicely tonight and I can pour the second layer tomorrow with this completely done. I am adding links to the description below for all of the different products that I'm using in this project. I'm adding it for the mica powders, the alcohol inks, the resin. I used Let's Resin for this project, and also for the chessboard that I used. So those are linked in the description below. As I am getting to be more pleased with the board, I am just going to make sure that as I finish this all up, I am cleaning up all the little spills and little spots on the board. And I'm also going to hit it with the lighter. I don't want to use my heat gun because I don't want to let that resin move any more than it needs to. So I'm just going to kind of run my lighter over each one lightly to make sure that I'm popping all of the air bubbles that may still be in this. Now I'm going to be mixing my colors for my second layer of my chessboard, and I'm going to be using some mica powders and alcohol inks, and I'm going to be making 4 different colors for this project because I kind of want a sky type look, galaxy type look on the back of the board. So for the first color, I am going to be using a red, rose, and pink alcohol ink, and it's red rose mica powder, or rose red mica powder. And for the second color, I am going to be using a magic violet mica powder and a violet alcohol ink. And for my third color, I am going to be using a cobalt blue and a turquoise alcohol ink. And those are the 3 main colors I'm going to be using. If you notice, the cup with the very small amount is going to be a luster white. I just want that as a highlighter, and I don't want that to be one of my main colors, but I'm also going to add a slight amount of the white to the pink and just to lighten it up a little since it's that rose red color. And I'm adding a slight amount of alcohol ink to my white as well. At this point, as I am mixing my colors, like my white, it wasn't quite dark enough, so I added more white to it. And as I mix the pink, it's so bright that I actually am going to come in and add a drop of black alcohol ink to it just to darken it up a little. because I like the darker look for the galaxy type look, so it's not quite so bright and hot pink. And I did the same thing with the purple. I just added 1 drop of the black alcohol ink to it just to darken the color a little bit, but I think Magic Violet is one of my favorite mica powders just because I love how shiny it is and the color that that purple gives off. Now that all my colors are ready, I am ready to start pouring them over my board. And I'm just going to come in with my blue first and just kind of pour some lines across the board, trying to fill in different spots, different amounts of blue. And I'm going to do that with each of my colors. I'm going to come in with my pink next. And after I do my pink, I'm going to realize that I completely forgot to drop these little stars into my molds in my blank spot. So I'm going to come through now and drop it in all the blank spots that I'm seeing. And since glitter type add-ons do tend to sink, I'm hoping that the rest actually sink through. So I'm just going to fling a few across my board and just see where they land and hope that they show up since I forgot to put them in before I started pouring. But next I'm going to come in with my purple and start to fill in some of the blank spaces, and I'm just going to keep doing that with my different colors until I am happy with how it looks. And if you notice, I just come in with small amounts of the white as a highlighter to just give it a slightly different look in some of the areas and some depth until I am happy with how my board looks and until I am filled up. So that's what I'm doing with the board as I am pouring, is just filling it up and hoping that I enjoy the patterns that come through. Now, after I have filled up my board, I am going to come through with my heat gun and I'm going to pop all of my bubbles. I'm going to add my link to my heat gun in the description below as well. And I just want to make sure I get as many of the bubbles popped as I possibly can on this chessboard so that it is a nice clear finish. And when I'm happy with that, I am going to actually start on one of my sets of pieces. And at this point I realized I should have probably done my pieces first because my resin is starting to set up. So it is actually a little bit difficult to get in my molds. And I'm just going to do some colors in a few of them of one, and then I'm just going to kind of add other colors on top and layer it with the 3 different colors I have. Now, the one thing I'm going to say is that since I did wait and my resin is hardening, I'm actually having difficulty getting it to go to the bottom of each of my pieces. And they decided that they wanted to start falling over. So this was a bit of a mess and definitely a learning curve. In fact, I completely understand why people get holders for their chess pieces after having done this, because that would totally make this so much easier if you just had something to set each of the pieces in as you're pouring them, because as you will notice, they totally fall over while I am doing this. And I keep having to pick them up and try to get them to stand up. In the end, it just takes some time, but I regloved at this point and went in with all of my plastics and just started pushing it through to the bottom of each mold. And here they are the next day after I have let them set and I have started to pull them out. I've already gotten 2 pulled out and you see they've actually come out quite nicely. So here are the rest of them as I unmold them. Now, there were a few things that I noticed as I was unmolding. A couple of them came apart slightly and I had to reset them together, but since they weren't quite set, they actually pieced together quite nicely, the top with the bottom piece. There's a few air bubbles. I should have used a much thinner resin for the pieces, and I do realize that, but again, it was my first time and a learning curve. And overall, I like the color variety, and I just think they've turned out so prettily, so that is the good part about it all. Now I'm going to move on to my second set, and I am going to do a black set for my second set. I also used my black resin dye, my black alcohol ink, a little bit of mica powder, and I used my onyx glitter. And I'm slowly pouring it into each of these molds it's going much better this time because I'm pouring it right after I have started with my resin so that it actually will settle to the bottom without as much maneuvering and having to move everything around. And as with most of my videos, everything is kind of sped up because I figure you can kind of see what I'm doing and you don't have to sit through an hour-long video to get the results. But that's basically what I'm doing with this, is just filling each one of these with the black, kind of squishing it around in there and making sure that it's in each of the cracks and crevices, letting them sit. In some of the video, you can see little bubbles even popping out on their own. And I'm just kind of giving them that time to sit and making sure that I am keeping up with filling them as the bubbles do sit. And then I'm going to hit each ones with a lighter to pop the extra bubbles that come to the top, and just keep filling it over the next few minutes as I watch them and make sure that they all level out quite nicely. Now at this point, we're just going to let everything sit overnight and see how it all turns out. So here's the chessboard. I'm getting ready to unmold it to see how all the colors worked out, etc. And here it is. I absolutely love the back with the colors and how they blended, but I am just in love with this top. It just looks so good. The squares are very defined. I like the color combination, and overall, I'm just very pleased with how the whole thing has turned out. And now I'm going to unmold all of my black pieces. They've also seemed to turn out quite nicely. That little castle piece has some bubbles on the top, but it's to be expected, especially with this first pour that I've done, learning the different things about the molds. There are definitely some things I would do differently, but that can be said every single time I get a new mold the first time I do it. Still, for a game for my family, it's going to work out quite nicely, and then I can possibly make some more to sell in the future. Overall, I've loved this project. I like how each of the pieces turned out. I think overall it's just a great project, and I guess my next thing is, what colors should I do next? And also, if you notice, the stars actually have shown up quite nicely, so I did get them in there in enough time to be able to see some of them. There's a few kind of at the bottom of the board that you can see when you turn it over as well, but I am just very happy with this added stars and how they look. The colors have gone together quite nicely. They've blended nicely. There's a couple of spots where there's a little spots of mica powder that could have been mixed in a little better, but overall, I'm just very happy with all of the pieces. I like these blue and purple and pink pieces. I like the variety of them. Some of them are very blue, but that was kind of to be expected with as much issues as I was having using those first set, since the resin had already started to harden. But here is a close-up of it. Overall, I think it just looks very nice. And if you like this video, please just like and subscribe for more. And if you have some ideas for my next color set, just comment below on what colors you think I should make next. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.